World War II was one of the most historically significant events in the natural world, known to most as the center of the cruelest, most twisted leader in history, Adolf Hitler. The horrible, unspeakable deeds that this excuse of a human being ordained will forever remain heavy on the hearts of the human race. Unsurprisingly, Hitler was eventually defeated, and his final days of life proved how much of a coward he really was. Let's set the scene. It's April 29th, 1945. World War II was coming to its climax, as Nazi Germany had become the ultimate villain of the Allied powers. The Soviet Union soldiers, otherwise known as the Red Army, had done their best to infiltrate into Germany. When they finally succeeded, they attacked with the greatest force that the team could muster to get rid of the truest villain once and for all. In addition to this, America had begun to make their way towards Germany as well, banding together with the Soviets to take out their shared enemy of the human world. As war broke out in Berlin, the Germans quickly lost their footing. They were no match for the force of the two allies, unable to fight back. Suddenly, elderly men, police officers, and even young children were being called to defend against the Soviet Union, without a care in the world about whether or not they were equipped to face such a strong enemy. This method proved to be just a waste of innocent lives, and terribly unsurprising for the devilish dictator. Adolf Hitler, known to his allegiant subjects as Führer, had already been hiding for months. He knew that the Germans were running out of time, but he didn't yet know what to do about it. The people of Germany were evacuating left and right, desperate to seek refuge from the carnage that occurred on the streets of their beloved homes. Hitler, of course, remained shielded from the horror that was raining down on German citizens. He was comfortably shielded in the heart of Berlin, at Brandenburg Gate, in what was called the Führer Bunker. Built like an underground mansion, it was equipped with heating, electricity, and water, allowing the leader a comfort of which most of his people did not have. Hitler had the pleasure of descending into his new home on a red carpet laid out for him, but his world of power and gross riches would soon come to an end. The longer that Hitler stayed underground, the more paranoid and full of rage he became. He couldn't stand the thought of losing his plan for world domination to be foiled by people that couldn't understand his twisted vision of supremacy. Hitler was stuck in a cycle of immense rage, screaming and throwing things until his voice grew tired, followed by a period of methodical planning. He needed to find if there was any way out of the inevitable. Even though the borderline demonic leader tried to plan until his brain gave out, nothing he thought of could be accomplished without the manpower, something else he didn't have. Hitler's small crew had seen him descend into complete madness. They knew that the time had come to surrender. But Hitler refused to see that as an option. He continued to rage, trying to force the few people that were with him in his bunker to carry out his plan. But he was looked upon with pity instead of inspiration. Once Hitler realized he had no loyalty left to his name, he knew what he had to do. He had to end his own life before he gave anyone the satisfaction of ending it for him. He needed to have control, even if it was the last day he would be alive. Hitler's private doctor, Werner Haase, had been staying in the bunker with him. He consulted with Werner about the best ways to end his own life. The two planned out Hitler's final day together. On the early morning of April 30th, Hitler's doctor found the perfect, most painless way for Hitler to end his life: cyanide. But first, Werner had to be sure that this method would work. He picked his brain about what resources he could use to test his theory. That is, until he heard the innocent panting of Hitler's dog, Blondie, along with Blondie's dog handler, Otto Gunsche. The two fed cyanide pills to the beloved German shepherd, watching closely to observe the results. The helpless canine took his final breath almost immediately, to which the two nodded in agreement that this plan would surely work. Upon first awakening, Hitler's first order of business was to avoid dying alone. His mistress, Eva Braun, had been staying in the bunker with him. That morning, they got married, to solidify the loyalty that they had to each other, even in death. Instead of celebrating their wedding, basking in the glow of new love, they ironed out the details of their own deaths. The occurrences in Berlin had only grown worse throughout the night. One of Hitler's subordinates, Heinrich Himmler, had offered his immediate surrender without Hitler's knowledge. He was promptly denied. After this, Benito Mussolini, leader of Italy and one of the Axis powers that collaborated with Germany, had died. Not only that, Hitler grew even more weary when he learned of the manner of Mussolini's death. He had been viciously executed by his own people, Italians who only wished that the violence that Mussolini imposed and supported would end. Hitler knew that there was no going back now. If the Italians did that to his ally, what would the German people that were forced into war and genocide do to their leader once they found him? Hitler knew that his death was unavoidable, and it had to happen today. When Hitler, his newlywed, and all other women who were in the bunker sat down for lunch, it was made increasingly clear what was to come. Hitler offered everyone at the table a vial of cyanide, apologizing for only giving them poison as his farewell gift. He was preparing for the end, and he wanted to invite anyone with him that desired to leave the impending failure of Nazi Germany behind. Heinz Linge was another one of Hitler's loyal subjects that was granted refuge inside the Führer bunker. He was Hitler's personal valet, and one that knew Hitler's whereabouts at all times. He served as a kind of soldier in the Nazi army, protecting his leader personally, as Hitler was transported into his refuge when the world began to fall apart. Linge had been dozing off for his afternoon nap, and he was jolted awake by the sound of a gunshot. He picked his head up, swiftly cocking it from side to side. Where did it come from? Has someone infiltrated the bunker? Impossible. But with Mussolini's recent memorable death, he had to stay alert to the possibility that the Red Army, or maybe even worse, the German citizens, had found where Hitler was hiding. Linge closed his eyes, squinting them to try his hardest to remember where the sound had come from. As the wrinkles in his face grew, so did the pictures that replayed in his head from just seconds ago. He replayed the shocking noise of the gunshot, remembering that the first place he looked was toward the study. As he ran towards Hitler's study, he began to smell what seemed like nuts? Almonds, maybe? As he got closer, the smell only became stronger and stronger. He knocked on the door first, hoping that the noise he heard was all just a dream. But when no one answered, he realized that it could have been a reality. He pushed the door open, ready to take on whomever might be waiting on the other side. He peered around the perimeters of the room, scanning for an enemy. It took him a few seconds to notice Hitler and Eva Braun perched in their chairs. He quickly realized that the odor he had smelled did smell like burning almonds, a common comparison to the smell of cyanide. Eva sat in her chair, the almond smell wafting off her in waves. Next to her, it seemed as though Hitler wanted to take extra precaution to assure his own death, putting his own pistol to his head and pulling the trigger. Those that were left in the bunker wrapped the newlywed couple in blankets and carried them upstairs and outside. With swiftness, and before anyone could see the possibility of their leader being dead, they doused the bodies in gas and lit them on fire, shuffling back down to the bunker as they burned. Since that day, rumors swirled regarding whether Hitler was alive, dead, or in hiding, even though Heinz Linge gave an official statement to Time magazine, providing his account about how exactly the two had passed away. The Soviet soldiers neglected to believe him. It could have been a ploy to keep Hitler alive, and they had to be sure that he was really gone. The rumors continued. It wasn't until 1968 that his death would be confirmed, with the Soviet Union discovering and identifying his body. Hitler's death marked the end of the worst era in history, one that will never be forgotten to this day, and for all the days to come. What do you think about Hitler's death? Was it as you expected, or did you expect something different? Let me know in the comments. And as always, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification for more videos just like this one. Until next time.